So I'm so excited you're here for this lesson. I'm going to show you how to confidently mix beautiful harmonious color with just 5 colors. And how we're going to do this is we're going to be working with a triad to organize our color and to be able to understand a little bit more about color theory, but in a very simple way that works really well, that you could apply immediately to your paintings, into your painting practice. So we're going to start off with a triad here. And what we'll be doing is a primary equilateral triad with yellow, red, and blue. And you can see it here on my very well used color wheel. So we'll be working with that, but we're going to be really pushing our color mixing beyond just the regular mixing of these primary colors to make secondary colors. We're going to take it into tertiary colors and then into all the beautiful luminous grays and neutrals that you can arrive at by intermixing these colors. And the way that you create color harmony is actually with a limited palette and intermixing your colors in a way that will introduce a little bit of everything that is, it will introduce a commonality between these colors within your painting, and that creates harmony. So if you have a palette of, say, 15 colors, it's very hard to create harmony because it's very, very hard to intermix 15 colors. And it's quite a lot of work, and you can imagine it just makes my brain hurt thinking about it. I use all different types of palettes, from a very limited palette of 4 colors to a more expanded palette of, say, like 9 or 10 colors, but and that's more like out in the field or with a still life class. But I have really found that 5 is the magic number that works really well for creating harmony. So I've had a lot of fun doing various different triads and arrangements, and then I do these color boards that help me immediately see the color swatches. And so I'm really excited to share this information with you. It has really elevated my understanding of color and my painting practice, and I think it will with yours as well. So I teach a lot on color and color theory, and it's a big part of my course, my online course called the Oil Painting Foundations course, Foundations of Oil Painting rather, and really excited about that course. But this is a fun little tidbit that's packed full of information that will help you for the rest of your painting career, because you can really take this type of triad and you can do it with your secondary colors, for example, with like an orange, violet, green type of situation. And you can play around with all the different types of colors that are available in pigments within these triad hues. So hue is color. So it's really can be expanded beyond beyond your imagination. I use these color boards before I do any major painting, any major studio painting. So what we'll do, and I will have full instructions here with the guide, with the color mixing guide that came free with this module that I'm sharing with you. So we're going to go ahead, and you want to start your triad with the cadmium yellow light on the top, and you could substitute that with a cadmium lemon as well, and cadmium yellow lemon. And then we're going to go ahead and put another choice of yellow on the top, which is our yellow ochre. All right, and then at the base we're going to share the base of our equilateral triangle with our cadmium red light. And with our alizarin. And I am noticing that this cadmium red seems kind of stiff. It was kind of old. So I'm going to go ahead and change that out. If you have old paint laying around, sometimes, well, now that one's really juicy. Sometimes it gets kind of stiff, and I don't want to work on my demo with that. So let's just put this little piece of paint on top of that to be more accurate. Okay, that's it. Cadmium red light and alizarin crimson are our two reds, and then we have our blue. So what's fun about these triads is that you can play around with, I find that 5 colors is really great, but you could use 4 or 5 colors or 6. I wouldn't use a whole lot more than 6 when you're playing around with these color boards, because it gets really complicated. But anyways, you can substitute, like you can have different types of yellow or different types of the reds and blues, just as long as it's like 4 or 5 colors. So that's where we would start out. So I'll just go ahead and mix my mid-range color. So I'm going to put this off to the side, and when I mix my colors, I keep the colors that I'm mixing close in proximity to where the mother piles are. Okay, so for example, I don't go over here and mix my warm colors and over here and mix my cool colors. I kind of keep my warm colors over on where they belong on this side of the palette, and the other ones on this side of the dark colors, and the cool colors over here. So you want to get in the habit of organizing and managing your palette to work for you, so you can find any color anytime. So I'm just trying to find a kind of a mid-range here for my orange. Okay, so that's just going to go here. Hopefully you can see this okay. Yes. And while we're at it, I'll go ahead and I'll make my mixture of the yellow ochre, which is a darker yellow, but still in the yellow family, with our cad red. Cad red light is what I'm using, and is on my palette often, especially, it's on my regular palette, like when I'm plein air painting or painting from life, versus cadmium red regular. Put that right there. So we have those two, and then we'll move on to mixing our halfway mark between our yellows and blues here. So we'll take let's get that off of there. You want to keep your mother piles really clean, so you don't get confused. It's hard to sometimes mix and talk at the same time, but I keep these mother piles very clean, so they don't get contaminated. Okay, so then so you'll notice, even going through this exercise, the darker colors, you don't need as much of the darker colors when mixing your, trying to find your halfway arrangement here. So there we go. So I'd say that's about halfway. I'll put that right here. moving right along. We'll do the same with our yellow ochre and blue. Find a halfway color that has, you know, it's not always 50-50. I hate to say that because it's not 50, it's not exactly half of the blue and the yellow, but you visually you want it to look like a 50-50 mix, or you know, halfway in between those two colors. So there we have that. So that's how you started off, and then we need to do, of course, our blue and our alizarin. And our blue, and cadmium. So I started off with the alizarin, which is our cool red. Here we go. Here's our halfway mark there with our alizarin, which pretty much looks like a black, but if you scrape it away a little bit, like I am doing here, you can kind of see the color transparency that come through, and you can kind of see more of the actual color. And then we'll do our cad red with our blue. So I'm mixing with a palette knife versus a brush. And when I'm first starting out painting, I get into this habit of doing just that, mixing with my palette knife versus a brush. And the reason why is because it really keeps my brushes clean, and it just gets me working with the color and the piles. I can scrape things easily. It's just such a much more efficient way to work, and it keeps your brushes nicer. So I will just put this underneath my other halfway mark. So those are some beautiful, rich colors there. Now, what's also great about doing this exercise and really exploring your paint pigment qualities is that you will discover certain properties that you should know as a painter about your pigments, like what colors are more transparent and which ones are more opaque. So, you know, you'll notice that the ultramarine blue and the alizarin crimson are very transparent, translucent. There are dark transparent colors. And then the cadmiums have a lot more body and opacity to them. So you'll find that as you start doing these swatches, and that comes into play when you're painting, and the certain effects that you want to create is, you know, really taking advantage of the transparency juxtaposed to the opacity properties. So, and you think about that while you're mixing colors and how to achieve certain colors, whether or not a color is transparent or opaque. So from there on, we can also, since we have all these piles created, it's always good then at that point to mix a little bit of white in with your mix, and go ahead and get a lighter version so you can kind of experiment with seeing how that orange looks with some white. And how does that compare to the other orange mixed with a little bit of white? And in doing these triads, you can kind of get a glimpse of how I have found to organize my palette. And that is also something that really drives the success of your paintings, and also just the pleasure of painting and getting into your flow. Having you know, some sort of organization to your palette actually empowers you once you get going on your painting, and understanding how the colors are, where they are, and what went in them. Another reason to work with a limited palette is because you will remember how you actually made the color a lot easier. So many times I have students say, well, how did you make that color? I don't know how I made that color. And they are, you know, freaking out that they will, you know, not remember. But it's a lot easier to remember with a lot less choices. So then we move on to, yeah, so let's just, you know, move on to adding white to these mother piles that we just created. And, you know, putting that onto your palette too. Wait, I think I want that to go here. And here. Let's get a little bit more white on there. There we go. Beautiful. So already you can see we're creating some beautiful mixes just with our mid colors that we've created, and we're just getting started. So we'll go into here and put in a little bit of white here. Now, how you organize this, you know, it's not this actual triad board. Things aren't always going to be in their most perfect spot, because I don't want you to just feel like you have to analyze where everything goes, you know, to the point where it's, you don't do the work. The most important thing is that you do the work, and just, you know, enjoy the process, do the work, and enjoy the discovery that happens. If it doesn't all look perfect on your board, it's not a big deal. Some of my boards get kind of quite messy, actually. So don't worry about that so much. It's just, you know, I can't say how invaluable this is to really just get to know the colors and what happens to them, you know, with when mixing with other colors, when mixing them with white and intermixing them. So it's like the doing is where the magic happens. And then you have this super cool triad board that you can refer to, which is awesome. Let's put this over here closer to that. So what else is really nice with the palette knife? I'm just taking my 5, you know, colors, my 5 primary colors, and adding some white to them too, just to get that on the board. But make enough in your pile that, if you can, you know, remember, make enough in your pile that you could intermix it with the next round of mixing. Some of my piles are a little skimpy. That happens sometimes, but just, you know, do your best to mix enough that you can see, that you have enough to, that you have enough to intermix it. Okay, and then we got our yellow ochre. And you can, you know, make many variations, going lighter and lighter and exploring the pastel range of these colors. It's up to you. I am just kind of wanting to show you this process, and you can expand on it and or simplify it as you feel comfortable with. So, okay, so now we have all the information here. Oh, we need the alizarin crimson. So I have plenty of paper towels around for this exercise because it really is helpful to wipe off your knife after every mix so you don't contaminate your piles of paint. Okay, so now we can start intermixing some more. Have some more paper towels. So we'll start, we'll just kind of rotate around. So then we can, you know, go ahead and do these mid steps here and throughout here. And then we're going to start intermixing all kinds of colors, cross mixing across the triad. And if you run out of room, you can also put some of those cross mixes on the sides, and those would be more of your neutrals. So, but I'm just going to start without the white, and then we'll, you know, without the lighter version, we'll just start with the like the yellow and the orange, for example, that we created with our CAD light, and then that's going to go heavier on the yellow side. Yes, like so. And then we'll do the same with, let's do the same with the yellow ochre. So we're going to take yellow ochre and CAD red, which was here, yellow ochre and CAD red. Okay, so, and we'll add a little bit more of the red. For that. Oh, and then we'll go on the lighter side too, and we'll do the darker side there. So you can kind of start seeing how this is. So we'll go with the lighter. So we still have this mixture here. This was the yellow ochre plus cadmium red. And then we'll add that with a little bit of yellow. Take a look at that. Might need more yellow. Okay, so that's this one here. Beautiful. And then we'll do the same with the orange color, adding more red to that. And then you'll do the same with our alizarin crimson as well. And I don't think we did the mixtures with the alizarin crimson, so let's go ahead and do those. So we have yellow with alizarin crimson, just a little bit of yellow. Oh boy, so you really start seeing how strong some of those transparent colors are. They have strong tinting power. Whew, that's really a lot. So that's the alizarin crimson version of yellow. I'll put that over here. And then we'll do the mid, that was more on the lighter side. We'll do a darker version over here. That looks more like the middle version. Let's use that as our middle version right here. And then we'll use a darker version here. There we go. And then we can move on to our mid-range on our yellow and green, so yellow-green. So we'll add more yellow. Here, let's clean this up. So we'll add more yellow to our yellow-green, which was right here. Just add this to there. More yellow. There we go. And then we'll add a little bit more blue to the yellow-green. You can see a beautiful, beautiful green. So that's awesome. And we can, while we have these colors pre-mixed, you could do a few variations of that color lighter. You may as well, since you haven't mixed, because what we're going to start doing next will be intermixing these colors. And then we have that a bit more white in there. Oh, that needs a lot more white. And then we can go ahead with our intermixing our yellow ochre. So we have the yellow ochre intermixed, let's see, on the, we want to take our yellow, oh, not that yellow ochre. We want to take, oh, we want to take these greens over here, right? And intermix that with more yellow ochre. Oh, so that was this one here. And if you lose place on your palette, you can just mix some more. But it really does kind of start training us to be more mindful about how we keep the palette. Put just a little bit more here. And arranging things on our palette, arranging puddles on our palette. Also, when it gets too complicated, you can scrape away and start fresh. But I kind of like to keep as many piles as I can handle on here, so I can start intermixing them and make neutrals. So then, remember, we had this. Oh well, let's just go ahead and use this because we ran low. So we have our yellow ochre and plus ultramarine blue, and just go ahead and make a darker version because we only had these two right here. So we're going up here, and then here's our darker version. So you can see that's one reason why, even though it's more complicated to throw this yellow ochre in there, and the alizarin crimson in there, these are great modifier colors that can create some unique colors, and they're also like a cooler version of each color. You know, like the yellow ochre is cooler than this cadmium light, and it's more neutralized. And then obviously this alizarin crimson is much cooler than the cadmium red. So and then we can do the same over here, you know, getting down to our blue, our violets here on the bottom of our triad. We can take we'll start with the dark ones, just pushing one of the mid violet, which is just almost like a pure violet, pushing that with more blue, so it becomes a blue violet. This was with the alizarin crimson mix. And then what happens when it becomes more of a red violet? So just mix a new one here. So what happens when it becomes more of a red violet? Okay, and so there you have that. Oh, and then we had the blue. We had the midpoint of the blue. It made a brown color, the blue and the cadmium red light. So we'll use one that's more towards the blue family. Right. Oh, I think I need to mix that a little bit better. Okay, one that's more towards the blue family, which is a really beautiful, dark, rich, almost black, a warm black. And then what happens when we push that more towards the red family? This was cadmium red and ultramarine blue. Oh, it becomes a burnt sienna kind of color. So you can see how wonderfully invaluable this is. You know, and then you can just start kind of going to town, like, you know, just add a little bit more red and do another intermediate step here. Just, you can let your curiosity kind of guide you. Like, oh, well, I want to see what happens with that burnt sienna that gets warmer with more red even. What? Ooh, that's like really a beautiful terracotta color. So I kind of start, you know, just letting my curiosity lead me through the in-between colors that I want to see, you know, and what I have the patience for and the room for on the board. But usually you just kind of really get into that discovery mode. So so here we're going to start mixing some luminous grays and, you know, move on to our luminous grays. So we're going to kind of cross mix some of these secondary colors that we created with, you know, like our orange colors, our violets and our greens with each other, and seeing what happens when our secondary colors intermix and make tertiary colors, and then moving towards neutrals. So let's have some fun with that. So, you know, we've got our orange here, and, you know, we can just intermix that with, you know, kind of go on a diagonal, you know, when you're thinking about these things. And what you can be thinking of is really working with complements. So orange and blue are complements. So we'll take orange. Let me put this down. Orange and blue, as you can see on the color wheel, are complements. So I find some variation of orange and blue, and then I'm going to intermix those. Okay. So then you can choose whether it has a tiny bit of white or not white. You can do them raw without any white and then add white. I just went ahead and used my blue that had a tiny bit of the white in there because I figured it. I'm just really curious to see, you know, the pigment and the color with that. So we have orange and blue here. So there's a mid-range color. And then just to keep things straight in your mind and start playing around with how the neutrals work, you could take that same color and on the edge of it, add some white. And voila, we're starting to get some really amazing grays and neutrals. And so you can start building those on the side. You know, those are kind of your neutrals and your grays. So we had the orange and the blue. Let's do violet and yellow. So we can take our violet pile, which was right here. And if you run out of room and you run out of paint on your mother pile, it's pretty easy to remember, oh yeah, okay, these were just my primaries that I mixed together into secondary colors. So it's these two. So I've got my violet, and I'm going to mix that with some yellow. I'll take this on this side to just keep it straight that I mixed it with the yellow. So there we have a beautiful green with our violet and our yellow. Violet and yellow, so we can find that in the mid-range here. And then we can add a little bit of white to that. And there's another beautiful gray green now. And then what's next? We could use our same violet with yellow ochre with our other yellow. Why don't we try that? It makes like a gold ochre. Grab as much violet as I can in there. Looks like it's a little bit more high up towards the yellow ochre family, but so I'll put it up there more. And so there we have some of our violets, at least our cool violet with our yellow. And let's see, we have so we want to try, how about our green and red? So that's our last complementary mix, green and red. So, you know, you want to take maybe your most green that you created, or you can make some more if you need to. And we'll mix it with, I'm just going to do it with the cad red for now. Try to find my halfway point with the green and the red. Don't know if that was quite the halfway point. It looks very red. So I'm going to mix myself some more green. My regular green with just the regular yellow. Okay, that looks like very green. Okay, mix that with our red. And that's more of a halfway point. So it's kind of like a raw sienna kind of thing. So that's the green and the red. So you start seeing very subtle shifts that are occurring here just with these 5 colors. You can see why you don't need gobs and gobs of paint. Save your money and instead use your time wisely to actually study what happens with these colors, because it's just a whole world that opens up when you start taking the time to actually play around and see what you can achieve with just these 5 colors. And if this is too complicated, do it with just 3 colors, which I'd highly advise. I teach a wide range of artists, from people that just are starting to paint that have never even picked up a paintbrush to more advanced painters. So I kind of like to give as much value as I can to my students and to everybody that's tuning in. So so now we're starting to mix our intermix and get our neutrals. So we never did our kind of like our brownish. Let's try that brownish red mixture that was like mixed with it was the red mixed with the blue, and it kind of, you know, made like an earthy tone kind of color, like a brown color. And so that's kind of basically a red color too. Mix it with one of the greens that are on our palette. So at this point, I kind of just start jumping in and kind of scraping what scraps I have left. But I'm still in my mind logically, you know, going through the steps like, you know, this is still a complementary mix here. So that's beautiful. So let's take a look at that. And then you can start, you know, after you get some grays that you like, you can also just experiment adding, you know, a little bit of white or a lot of white. It depends what I'm doing the board for. I usually do these boards for a particular painting that I had. Well, what often happens is it's like I have a gem that I created, a little, you know, 6x8 or 8x10 on the spotter plein air plein air painting that I may have done on location, and I want to make it into a studio painting. And so I'll explore these colors and create color boards. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's two or three for that particular motif and scene that I did, and I'll just try to see, well, what kind of range can I get, you know, with these colors for that particular painting. So if it's a pastel-y painting, I might be doing more light colors. If it's a, you know, mid-tone painting, more of the mid-tones, you know, so I kind of play around with it. So anyways, and then from here, just when you do your cross mixing, you just kind of want to see if it's a complement or a near complement. So, but you know, now I'll just for fun, I'll take like this, I'm going to make like a punchy yellow chartreusey color, you know, like in that range, one of my yellow green mixes, and then make that go with like one of the lighter oranges maybe. Let's try that. So you can find a place on the board that makes sense. Let's see, that's kind of cool. That's kind of neat there. Or you can put it off to the side. What happens if I make that lighter? Maybe with some more orange. And if I kind of like the direction one of the colors are going, I'll do several swatches of that. I kind of wanted that to get lighter. Let's try it lighter. There we go. And you can just experiment away. Let's try one more version of that with a little bit of white. Oh, I don't like that. And if I don't like it, I'll kind of, I don't know why I'm adverse to that. Usually I like almost all the colors, but heck, if I don't like it, I'm going to get it off my board. Here, you can just go over it with another color that you find pleasing. So, you know, if you want to do some more violets, you could play around more with the violet family. I'm really liking this blue and alizarin crimson with a little bit of white. I'm really liking that, so I want to experiment more with that, let's say. I want that even bluer. A little bit of white. Oh, that's pretty. So you call the shots on how you want to develop this, and I just try to fit them wherever I can. I mean, I try to make them make sense where I put them in relationship to the triad. And if it's getting too crowded in the middle with the cross mixes, the neutrals, that's when I start putting those neutrals on the side. And you'll get used to that. Let's use some of this then. So, you know, this has obviously got more of the alizarin crimson in there. And then what happens if I introduce a little bit of red to that, you know, this cad red. So then I'm starting to really stretch that color into some other areas. That's really pretty. So this is how you get to these really sweet spots. And look how beautiful the harmony is between this mauve and this green ochre, green gold ochre. So you start finding these gems that just jump out at you. And so then, you know, here I'm like, oh, well, those were pretty next to each other. What would they look like mixed together? And that's another beautiful color. So, you know, maybe I pop that right there. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this lesson and that you enjoy mixing, you have fun with it, and get great joy out of playing around with your paints and really stretching your color vocabulary. And thank you for joining me. Oh, and please check out my trailer and the write-up on my online course, Foundations of Oil Painting. I would love to work with you. This is just one component of color. We go into value and notans and thumbnail sketches and perspective and all the foundations that you may be missing. Or if you're just starting painting, what a great way to start right out of the gates with the juicy stuff, the most powerful stuff that all art schools teach, but that so many people miss out on. Not all art schools teach it. They should teach it. But so many people miss out on it, whether they went to art school or not, or you're just starting out. These foundations are the key and the power to any type of art that you create. So thanks for joining me, and I'll look forward to hearing how you liked this free course on color painting, on color mixing. It might not always be free, but it is for you guys, and thank you for joining me, and happy painting and enjoy your art journey.